Good evening and welcome to the Legion Cantina. In today's episode, I'm going to be going through the next two groups for the Legion Cantina Cup and also revealing the results from the previous round. So first and foremost, let's talk about the results from the previous round. In Group C, we ended up with Let Me Down, which was the Cody and Obi-Wan list, winning out. It was very close. I think it was 33% for Let Me Down over Krennic's crew at 31%, so a very close one there. And then moving into Group D, the victory there was actually pretty convincing in the end for Only Snipes at 37%, although Princess and the Frog also did pretty well. So the next quarterfinal will be Let Me Down versus Only Snipes. Today we're going to be going through Group E and Group F. Again, I'll go through them 4 lists at a time, then put the poll up. First poll will go up straight after this video, and then the next one will go up about 2 days later to get the vote for that one as well. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. And the first list we are going to be talking about is Yoda over Anakin. So this list is a 6-act Gar list. Bit of a different take though. Instead of running Anakin, you're taking Yoda in this list, and mainly I'm guessing looking for the guidance onto either Bad Batch or one of the Mega Squads. So again, you've got Rex here with Recon Intel to give that Scout 2 onto pretty much whatever you want to give it to, really. I suspect Bad Batch should be one of them, and then normally you'd probably be hitting one of the Clone Trooper infantries with this, but also I guess Yoda's technically eligible as well if you wanted to put on him. And then yeah, I think this is a different take on a 6-act Gar list, so probably an originality score of 6 out of 10, but in that kind of way, you do have a lot of the sort of normal tropes that you do see from the 6-act Gar list. So 5's Ahsoka, two lots of the shotgun, then a slightly different take on the other squad. So this one's got the Z6 in and still the Mega Squad, rather than just putting in 3 lots of the shotgun. So maybe that other squad, the sort of one with the Z6 in, has a slightly different role. And I think environmental gear is a really sensible take here. Like, the margins are so fine with this kind of list. If there is some difficult terrain that's awkwardly placed and it means you can't charge, can't cover that distance, I can see why having that extra bit of movement in there could be super valuable. I think the force push on Yoda is probably overkill, especially it does have disengage natively on one of his command cards, so I'm not sure how necessary that is. I think I personally would also drop Inspiring Presence for improvised orders, just because I'm a big fan of improvised orders. But maybe that courage bubble, extending that bit further, is kind of useful. But I don't know, like, I suppose with this one, I'm thinking of this from kind of a rebel perspective, where courage 2 is pretty good, but here, if that inspiring presence is the difference between one of these units getting 2 actions and one of them getting 1, then it's 100% worth that 5 points. So maybe there is something in that. But yeah, this is going to play out, I think, like a fairly typical 6-act Gar list. A Yoda in more of a supportive role compared to Anakin, where he might be a bit more of a kind of making the sort of a playmaker in those lists, whereas I think Yoda might be a little bit more defensive in this one, but he has still got the capacity to put in a bit of work if he needs to. Rex will definitely be sitting a bit further back. I think he's by far the most vulnerable unit in this list, and it's not even that close. And yeah, Bad Batch going to Bad Batch, and then the Clone Trooper's going to Clone Trooper. I think we are seeing a bit less of this 6-act clone list at the moment. I don't think it's got like worse necessarily. I think it was maybe just something that was like quite new and fresh and exciting. And then I think actually, unless you are, I think, really good at the game, I think it's really difficult to actually get this list to function properly, because you are so low on activations. You really have to get the most out of each one. So I can see why maybe people might try this initially and then move away from it. But yeah, reasonably competitive, as with any 6-act Gar list. In the right hands, this could be really strong. And then the theme, I think, is fine. Like, it's not particularly good, it's not particularly bad. It's sort of middle of the road, 5-6 out of 10 on this one. Moving over to Krennic Veered. So this is Vaderless Empire. 12 activations, which you love to see. I think any red save list that can push 12 acts is interesting. Krennic with strict orders and improv, don't see anything wrong with that. You haven't got any operatives in this list, so there's no point taking Trusted Agent, although that would be kind of my choice here. I approve of double improv. I think you are basically, well, depends, I guess, on what you're giving orders to turn 1. If you're playing standing orders on that ATST, then you probably want Krennic and Veers to come out that bit earlier, but I really like the double deaths. Personally, I would take offensive push over over mission objective here, just because you do have that free recover on Veers' 3-pip, which I think is actually quite good synergy with them. Like, if you can get the orders on both and have that control over when they go, I think that's pretty reasonable. Chucking in 2 lots of scout troopers, one a bit more up close and personal, one a bit further away. I don't really get the mission objective on the scout troopers. I don't think it's that useful. Like, one reroll, it's getting a free observation, right? I just don't think it's that powerful with the scouts, unfortunately. And then scout troopers, again, are they going to be getting the aim from on the hunter for people who are used to the old version of the game? Maybe not. Snowtroopers with Del Mico, I really approve of that in an ATST list. I think that's a really sensible decision. Personally, I probably would have dropped maybe the mission objective and maybe the strict orders from Krennic to try and get hold of a couple of Astros to kind of heal up that ATST, because you are putting a lot of points. I mean, it's going to be, what's that, 175, 180? You want to be able to keep that alive. So yes, the repair 2 on Dell is quite nice, but if you can get a couple more wounds on it as well, that might just be enough of a deterrent to mean it's going to survive. And then 2 lots of speeder bikes with Strike and Fade. I think there's nothing wrong with chucking Strike and Fade. It's not quite as good as it would be on swoops, but it is still a really nice thing to have. And I think if you can find those 5 points, it's definitely worth doing. I don't really understand the double HQ uplink on the Death Troopers, which I've just spotted, given that one of them is going to be entouraging from Krennic anyway. So I don't think that's required. And if your positioning is fairly good, they should be pretty near them. Yeah, and the scanner on Krennic, I would look for the extra points on for the binocs if I was going to be doing that as well. So there are a few slightly odd decisions in this list. I think overall I really approve of like the kind of feel of the list. Like, you've got Veers with some vehicles, Krennic with the desk, like that stuff all lines up really well. But I think there are just a few slightly odd decisions on the kind of gear choices for some of the units. So I think originality, I'll give it a 6 or a 7. It's pretty decent. Competitive, it's at the lower end. I'd say this is kind of a 4 or a 5. And then theme, I think, is on the sort of upper side of good. So maybe like a 6 or a 7 again. I think it's pretty decent. Tempest Echo, this is a fairly typical Tempest list. Obviously, you've got your 3 ATSTs, your double speeder bikes, and some scout troopers sprinkled in there, along with the stormtroopers. I really approve of the double Astros on the stormtroopers, really like that. I don't get targeting scopes here. That makes no sense to me because you haven't got the heavies, so I would immediately drop the targeting scopes on those units. And if you can, which you probably could, yeah, if you drop the spotter uplink as well, you could get another Astro on the stormtroopers, so that could work really well as well. Some impact grenades also wouldn't hurt in here. I think impact grenades on the scout troopers can go surprisingly well. You're normally going to hit for 3 anyway, so then if you're getting that impact, or it might even be impact for the grenade, I can't remember off the top of my head, but for that 3 or 4, maybe get a natural crit as well. Like, you could be pushing some really decent damage through armor, so it might be worth including. Speeder bikes, this is how I'd equip them. Spotter uplink and strike and fade, I think, is really good. And then this is the pretty typical ATST, hammers, light blaster, concussion, link targeting. This is, again, pretty much how I'd run them. There is an argument for the mortar. I probably actually would take the mortar just for that additional range, but the other option is you go full kit and then you take, or you might not be eligible to take the Arsenal. Might not be eligible to take the Arsenal 2 commander for the ATST. I'd have to check. Yeah, this is just a pretty typical Tempest list with a few slightly odd choices of equipment. So for originality, I'll give it 5 or 6, kind of middle of the road. This is very much, I think, on the lower competitive end. I think this is not an optimal way to run Tempest, so I'm going to give it a 2. And then the theme, it is what it should be. This is a pretty good list. I kind of enjoy the lack of like other heroes, like just having Mark 1 rocking around. I think is really good. Although he is a bit expensive at 180. Maybe he should come down in points a bit. I know he gets all the kit thrown in and does get surge to hit as well. Maybe there's something there. But I mean, obviously he has some really nice command cards. But I think coming down to like 170 might make him feel a bit better. So maybe that's something I should have talked about in my previous video. And finally, teamwork. This is all kinds of teamwork. It really frustrates me that you can't get Leia Wicket, Han, Chewie, Cassian, K2 in a list together. I really wish there was some flexibility. Well, actually, tell a lie. No, I'm not telling a lie because you can't take Cassian and K2 in Brightree. So I was correct. Yeah, just I'd love to get all 6 of them in a list together. I think that would just be great. Like so much token synergy, all that stuff. So Yeah, I mean, this is a very heavily token focused list. You've got two lots of vigilance for starters, which is pretty brave. I approve the trusted agent, think that's a good take. Up close and personal on hand, that's always what I would run. Prepared supplies, not so useful on hand. I would probably drop that and spend the points elsewhere, but I get what you're going for in terms of token synergy here. Leia with situational awareness, if you've got the points, I think it's a decent spend. She's normally going to have a couple of dodges knocking around, and with nimble, being able to dodge those crits can be super valuable. And portable scanner, obviously a solid take on Leia. Chewie with tenacity, protect from prepared supplies. Again, I would drop the prepared supplies here. I don't think it's necessary. I also don't think you count as gaining the dodge, which I think might be what they're going for here with the teamwork synergy. I'd have to check the wording on prepared supplies, but I don't think you get the dodge to then share with the other person when you burn prepared supplies, so I don't think that works. But yeah, tenacity and protector on Chewie are both, things that people would take on Chewie. Personally, I'd probably just run Chewie with nothing, maybe tenacity if you're feeling a bit spicy for those 5 red in melee. And then Cassian, this is the pistol Cassian version with improv, up close, situational prepared supplies. Again, I'm pretty sure prepared supplies wouldn't give you the dodge to share, but this is fine. This does make Cassian, he's nearly 110 points, I think, in this config, which is just too expensive. He's more 110 actually. He's 112. That's too expensive. Yeah, you can't. Pistol Cassian is fine, but not reliable enough to spend over 110 points on the chance that he'll put in some work. Like, his only real power turn is off that 1 pip. And then don't get me wrong, that 1 pip turn is good, but I don't think it's worth building a hero around. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Pistol. I'm not the biggest fan of Cassian, to be honest. And maybe I should have talked about him in my buff video. There's too many units to talk about. We move. K2 with Transponder and Blaster. Again, this is how I'd run K2. I think Transponder's always a really nice take. You love an aim, you love a dodge with those two, and this one does work with teamwork, as far as I'm aware. And then 3 mega fleets. Yikes! This list is all kinds of chaotic, and yeah, I mean, if those fleets do get to attack, they're going to put in work. However, they're probably not going to get to attack, unfortunately. They'll either be suppressed or they'll just be blown up before they get there. And then the A5 with no unorthodox tactician. What? Like, you built a teamwork related list, you didn't put an orthodox tactician in. That is a unfortunate take for me. That would have been absolute chef's kiss. Also, one of my pet hates, as we've established, list only gets 998 points, and there are 100% things you could have taken to get this list up to the 1,000 point mark. But yeah, overall, this list, I'm going to give a really good score for originality, actually. I think this is, I mean, people have built lists around the concept of teamwork before, so that in itself is not super original, but I really like the kind of unique decisions made in this. So I'm actually going to give it an 8 out of 10. Competitive, this list is not competitive. I'm actually going to give it another 2. I think this list would really struggle to win any games. I mean, you're 9 acts and none of your units are that survivable. You've only got 1 red save unit. Yeah, yikes. The theme is obviously also really good, so I'm going to give that an 8. I'm actually going to knock the originality down to 7. So a 7 and 8. So good for originality, good for theme, less good on the competitive side. Moving over to Group F. This is an Imperial March themed list. This one only got to 996 points, which is a bit sad. Probably could have found a way to chuck in an extra few points there. But again, this is a list that you will probably have seen a few times before. So you've got Krennic with Improv and Binoculars. It's not a bad take at all. Obviously, normally you would take Trusted Agent if you had an operative, but because even though you do have an operative, Din's a mercenary, so it wouldn't work. Vader with Push, Burst of Speed, Saber Throw, and Trusted Agent. Yeah, that doesn't work. I genuinely didn't read that in advance, so that doesn't work because he's a mercenary. Then you've got Din with Tenacity, Situational, Spotter, Jetpack, Flamer, and Beskar Spear. I agree with all of these apart from Spotter, Uplink, and maybe Situational. I don't think there's many circumstances where you're just going to be dodging crits with Din, but maybe. Shaw's with the T21B and dug in. Again, if you've got playmakers in this list, right? You've got Vader, you've got Din. So you don't need the really aggressive units in there, maybe. So the Shore's sitting back a bit further with the mortar and link targeting and stuff like that to generate those aims and put down that kind of suppressive fire. I kind of get it. Then Snowtroopers with the extra trooper and Imperial March. If you're going for Snowtroopers, I think you pretty much have to take a heavy, just because they got steady, and steady with March, as I found it with a couple of games with Empire recently, is really nice. So taking the Iron Gun, taking Gideon Hask, even taking Del Mico, I think are really good takes, just because steady is such a powerful ability. So I would try and find some points to drop in an Iron Gun or something into this list. Range troopers, yeah, just nearly 100 points. Man, that is sad, but I do like them. They have a spot. The problem is they're your only support, so I personally would drop the range troopers, sad as it is, put in some scout troopers, and then use the remaining points to take upgrade on the snow troopers. That would just be sort of just to control your orders a bit better and things like that. And then you've got Imperial Deaths with the DLT and offensive push. I personally, this is how I like to run my deaths. I think it's a really good take. You don't need offensive push, but I think it's a really nice thing to have, especially as you need to recover the config. So there is an inherent value to taking that recover. So yeah, not a terrible list. I think it's fairly typical, so I'm not going to mark it too harshly or too well for originality. It's on the lower end of the competitive spectrum. I'm going to give it a 4. And then its theme. There are there isn't loads of Imperial March, but it does feel like a good solid Empire list. So kind of middle of the road. I'll give it 5 out of 10 on theme. Cody Budark, as I've called this. This is a very interesting. It's 12 activations. Like, we mustn't like ignore the fact this is 12 activations. Cody with improv is absolutely fine. You can take him with Hunter if you want, but he doesn't need much. And at just 100 points with that direct vehicle, pretty solid. Padme, trusted agent, perfect. Like, gives you the sort of cushioning, as I sometimes call it, to for that token for Bad Batch, which is really nice. Naked Clone Trooper Infantry is fine. 2 Clone Troopers with the Z6, if you want that firepower, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, can't see a whole lot wrong with that. I mean, I think people increasingly are taking shotguns just because you tend to be shooting at closer ranges anyway, and going from, I mean, 6 white non-surging, well, might you surge sometimes, I guess. 6 white non-surging is like maybe 2 hits if you're lucky, which is the same as the shotgun, but the shotgun gives you pierce. Yeah, so I think the shotgun's a good upgrade normally. Arcs, medic into the fray, targeting scopes, a classic combo, just under 100 points, really solid. Some great medic targets in here, specifically Bad Batch and the Arcs. And then 3 naked barks, just for the objective play. I think it's really nice. I would be tempted to drop. I mean, what some people do is you wouldn't run improv. You would take Underworld on either, probably Cody. You'd take Underworld on Cody, and then maybe just upgrade 2 of these barks to sweep bikes. Drop a Z6. It's not the worst take in the world. You would then want to find some points for strike and fade, but yeah, it's pretty solid. Like, I think it's a different take on a kind of Cody vehicle list. I think I really like a Cody list where you can find something to put in the comms channel to bounce that back to Cody just to get that aim. Like, I think that really quickly pays off, especially, you know, if you're stumping up for a Sabre or an ISP or something. That, firstly, the order control, and secondly, the free aim, I think just feels really good. So yeah, competitive wise, I think this is a reasonably competitive list. Like, I've played against lists like this at pretty good tournaments, so I'm going to give it a 7. And then I think the theme is pretty solid. It's Cody with Bad Batch and some arcs, both the barks and the arcs. So yeah, I think this is a pretty solid list on the more competitive end, maybe of the ones we've looked at today. I wanted to call this like K2 sad or something, because he's not here. Again, we've got a teamwork list, but you've not taken the kind of teamwork synergy. Like, let's get K2 in here. But anyway, moving past that, Leia with improv and seize the initiative. I don't know if Leia needs seize that often, especially as Wicket's normally going to be in the bag anyway. So you'll have 2 commanders in the bag, which means you're fairly likely to draw one of them. So I personally would drop seize and go for, you know, the scanner or a trusted agent or something. Wicket with situational is fine. He needs forest dwellers. It's just too good an option to take, I think. So I would look for forest dwellers in this list. Appreciate there aren't many points here, but I would look for forest dwellers. Cassian naked is fine. Best way to run Cassian in my book. I mean, you can take a trusted agent and improv, whatever, but I think he doesn't really need any training upgrades. Jim is situational. Again, very solid take. You can give her inspiring presence if you want the courage bubble. I think that's also decent. Yeah, but she doesn't need anything. Fleets with Scattergun and Extra Trooper. I've run this at fairly competitive tournaments. It's an absolutely fine way to run fleets. Again, if you could squeeze an extra point in, maybe going for an Astro would be good, but appreciate this. Fleet Trooper is probably playing more of a damage role. Then 2 Rebels with Astros. This is how I run my troopers. So yeah, again, no disagreement here. 3 lots of Mando resistance with the duelist and prepared supplies. This is fine. The jetpack rockets are more compelling with Mando resistance, and getting that 4 red with the blast and the impact is pretty good, but I'm going for that survivability. Like, this is what is that? A sub 90, just over 90 point unit with, 4 lots of red surging saves and prepared supplies. Like, they could be really frustrating. They're not as good as Clan Ren, but Clan Ren are really strong. Then you got 2 lots of speeder trucks, one with the medic, unorthodox, Shriv, and HQ. I approve of that. And then one with door gunners, unstable, hotshot, and quad with HQ. So 1 aggressive, 1 more passive. Obviously, this is not a hugely competitive list. I think you don't have enough damage. Ultimately, I think is going to be the real fall down of this list. Like, I'm looking here and I just can't see anything that. The speeder truck can do a bit. The Mando resistance are all right, but Mando resistance is throwing what, like 8 black, 6 no pierce. Like, yeah, it's not super special, unfortunately. So not enough solidity and not quite enough damage, I think, unfortunately. And the lack of K2, like, I would 100% have looked for a K2 in this list somehow. Maybe you drop the buffing speeder truck or something to get another K2 in there, but yeah, that would have felt better. So originality, I'm going to give a 7. I think I've not seen a Rebel list much like this before, especially with the triple Mandos, so that's quite interesting. Competitive wise, I think this is a bit on the lower end. I mean, I'm going to say this now and it'll turn out to be somebody who's really good at the game, who's played really well with this, but it just doesn't feel like it has the kind of strong units that you'd normally build a Rebel list around. The cliches of Bad Batch, land speeders, etc. So I'm not saying this is a terrible list. I just don't think it's like the most competitive way to run this. And then theme wise, if K2 was in this, it would be an 8. As it is, I'm knocking it down to a 6. Yeah, I think just that missing K2 does cost this list a bit on theme. And the final one is Speed 1. So I'm really hoping everything in this list is Speed 1, apart from the Stormtroopers. Although, could you run 6 snows? I think you can run 6 snows, so maybe just 6 snows would have been the solution. But it's 11 activations, it's got Vader, it's got 4 E-webs. Fair play to the person who wrote this list, because running 4 E-webs is pretty crazy. And yeah, you got the HRU for the Stormtroopers, which is really nice. Like, those dice balls can really stack up quickly. And yeah, definitely not something to sleep on. Storms with Flame Trooper. Going for the medical droid is pretty. I mean, there's a good medic target in Vader, but they do need to be close by and etc. But giving Vader that extra health is never going to be a bad thing, and I think 20 points for extra health on Vader is always going to be a decent take. I do disagree with the recon intel here. I think it's just not necessary, and it is a lot of points that I think could be better spent possibly elsewhere. I mean, even like targeting scopes, for instance, on the snows, although when are you going to have time to aim, and you don't naturally generate aims, so maybe not. Yeah, I don't know. I think personally, I probably would just drop the Flame Troopers, unfortunately. I think the Ions are probably the way to go. They just give you more flexibility, and but they're saying that you do need something to be up a bit closer, which is maybe where the Flame Troopers come in, because otherwise you haven't got anything that can really push up, so maybe it's not the worst take, but yeah, I just think that the Flame Troopers on the base unit, that only throw that 1 dice per model, that just aren't that exciting, and they aren't super scary, because a typical infantry squad is only going to be, let's say, 4 or 5. So then you're throwing 4 or 5 black plus, in this case, 4 white, which just isn't that crazy. Like, with surge to hit, that's probably 4 hits, which even against white saves is probably only 2 or 3 wounds. So, like, again, like, you're not that afraid. But yeah, you got Vader to run the show a bit for you. Inspiring Presence is fine. You know, that Infinite Courage bubble making go a bit further is absolutely fine. You could also take Improv, but yeah, I see why Inspiring Presence is here. And then I just really like the Triple E web. I think I've never seen anybody take Triple E, Quadruple E web, tell a lie. There are 4 here, so I've never seen anyone do that before. So fair play, a bit of originality there. So I'm going to give it 7 out of 10 for originality. 4 out of 10 for competitive. I think it is a bit on the lower end. And then yeah, theme is fairly middle of the road, because not everything is speed 1, but nearly everything is speed 1. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10 for the theme. There you go, two more sets of lists reviewed. I'll put the first poll up straight after this video, and the other one will go up, as I say, 2 or 3 days later. Don't normally beg for likes, comments, etc., but the algorithm really seems to hate these videos for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why, but a like, a comment, etc. would be greatly appreciated on these. Otherwise, they will sink into the YouTube algorithm hell. But thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, etc., and I will see you for the next one.